Hi, let's continue the tours through my shelves here. This one and today's subject is the shelf with my American and some UK comics with crime stories in it. Real crimes, imagined crimes, all that good stuff. And as in my other shelves, I tried at least to keep some kind of order to them, so the older stories are on top of the rest of them. So let's start here on the top left side with this slipcase box here. These are the EC reprints from Fantagraphics. Usually a mixed bag with sci-fi, horror and crime in them. I rearranged the books a bit so that within this box, for instance, we have crime comics from Wallace Wood and Johnny Craig and others, and Reed Crandall. I really do like these books. Let's show you one of these books. They're sorted or assigned to the work of one artist each. So in this case Reed Crandall, and the reprints are all in black and white, which I dig a lot. Unfortunately, all these books are, as you can see here, shrunken down in size, which is a bit unfortunate. They always come with longer biographies, which is sometimes a bit strange, because some of these artists really led miserable lives, lived with their mothers and until they died, always at the drawing desk. Yeah, it's not always fun to read these biographies, even though they're interesting, and some of them really had some, the lives of some of them were really interesting. In this box here I have actually a collection of different stuff, not really crime related, like these Vampirella one-shots. All this stuff should actually go over there behind the wall to my horror section. Here we have a couple of reprints from EC, War Against Crime, and one reprint of Crime Does Not Pay, a bit thicker volume. Stuff comes here in color. Sometimes it's okay to have these stories in color, but usually I really prefer them to be in black and white. So, and now to my Dick Tracy volumes here. These are really random picks of mine. I can't say that they are superior to other Dick Tracy books, but I just shied away, at least as of now, of buying all of them, just because really I haven't read a ton of these strips in the books. I really dig them, but like in many of these reprints of older strips and comics, for me it's enough to read some strips, some pages, and put the book aside again and pick it up some weeks or months later. We have here Dick Tracy, a German collection of strips. A gorgeous two-tome collection is this one here, and I think this was my first dip into the huge well of the Library of American Comics. Not so sure, but this collects here, these two books collect Miss Fury by Tape Mills. One of the very first female cartoonists. This series started way before Catwoman and even before Wonder Woman. Why do I say Catwoman? Well, you can see here you see the her shtick is to put on this costume and fight crimes. She's not really a superhero, she's just an intelligent female detective, maybe Batman-like, fighting Nazis in a very pop artsy, linear, very decorative, very elegant style. And you can see why Trina Robbins did the introduction for these books here. Because she really worked in the same tradition as Tapia Mills here. Gorgeous books, really well made and good looking. So, and then we have my German reprints of Rip Kirby. Usually I try to get the reprints in English because the German translation, German is a special language. The sentences really quickly get much too long and then they don't fit in a speech bubble. This is obviously English, but inside you can see here it's all German. So, but these books are really great in terms of reproduction values and of size. And the most important thing is I didn't get my fingers on the English ones because I don't know which volume it was, but some of them aren't available any longer. So I picked up the German ones until volume 8. I guess there's volume 9 or 10 after the death of Alex Raymond. The series continued and the series continues as well. But I'm not really interested in not Alex Raymond, Rip Kirby. So in this box here we have Modesty Blaze, about this female James Bondish character. And then we have a collection of European album formatted reprints of Johnny Hazard by Frank Robbins. A bit unfortunately in color, but nice adventure strip in that Milton Caniff tradition. Could be easily put in my shelf with the Milton Caniffs as well. And as you may recognize, I'm absolutely rearranging my shelves as of lately because what else you can do in Corona times? So especially my European section behind the camera has changed totally, which I will show you soon. Somerset Holmes, an old classic comic drawn by Brent Anderson. Oh, the spine is cracking right now. Yeah, this can happen. One shelf below we have assortment of different stuff, like this book here with Alex Toth. Actually more horror stories, but in this collection of stories that were published previously in Creepy, there are some more crime-related story as well, so I put it on this shelf here. Obviously gorgeous looking, as all Alex Toth stories, like these reprints of Zorro stories, which I actually, and to be honest with you, have a bit of a hard time to actually read these stories, but they look gorgeous, of course. And I'm really glad that they kept them in black and white and not tried to fool around with colors. A nice little crime book, interesting format by Cameron Stewart. Same titulo, put out by Dark Horse. From Fantagraphics, there's a little book called Black River. And in the typical Francesco Francavilla retro style, we have Kara Böcek, A Mystery Tale by Francesco Francavilla from The Black Beetle. I have another book from The Black Beetle, I don't know where it is. Maybe I put that in my superhero section, and yeah, I'm not always very consistent and consequent in my choices as how to put these books here on the shelves. And when I'm really bored, I do stuff like this. Put my own little slipcases, build my own little slipcases for some floppies. I got Congo Bill, a series of, let's say, King Kong meets some Indiana Jones adventure, drawn by Daniel Zetzelti, however, with some really nice carbon covers to them. And I really like Daniel Zetzelti, however, very dark and gritty style as well. So the story, not so much here, it's really not much more than you can guess here. But so I built this kind of little slip cover here, which works well enough to keep my floppies in shape, and so that I can put them here as a trade, so sort of on my shelf. So now I have a whole lot of stuff from Mr. Rich Tommaso, and I would suggest, if you want to see more of his stuff, look for my video about Rich Tommaso's comics. Otherwise, he's a real favorite of mine. Unfortunately, his stories are delivered just for the first part, usually, what they promise, and then they fizzle out a bit. He's not the one who really finish his stuff. That's a bit unfortunate. I don't think that it is always his fault. Maybe it's the publisher. I don't know. But he has a real nice retro style going on. Sometimes very European looking. And I really liked his take on Dick Tracy. Dry County was one of these instances. A story that started great, but the ending was actually not as great as far as I remember. So here we have The Horror of Collier County. Don't know if I've included that in my older video. So now, and the One Trick Rip Off and Deep Cuts, a collection with stories from Paul Pope. I have some Paul Pope stories beneath here. Here we have a little collection of Vertigo crime books, assortment of concluded crime stories, each drawn by a different artist. This here, for instance, drawn by Chris Samney, and of course it looks great, because Chris Samney's art in black and white is really the way to go, in my opinion. And here a book written, as you can't oversee it, by Peter Milligan. He's the star in this book. The art not so much, but it will do the trick here. Like all these stories are pretty satisfying reads. Then we have Officer Down, drawn by Chris Burnham, written by Joe Casey. Interesting Chris Burnham weirdness, of course, even though I have to say in this book here they really exaggerated the bonus material. When you look at that, this here is all bonus material. The script and, can't remember, some other stuff here in the end, and cover section as well. Here are some German versions of classic material. The Shadow. Did a video about these as well, so you may want to check out them. I guess I did a video about Thief or Thieves. And From Hell. So here's my section of Brubaker and Phillips. I guess you know them, you should. And I did some videos about the stuff here, so I will go through these books a bit quicker. That's a nice omnibus of The Sleeper, Incognito, The Heart of the Beast, Fatale 1 and 2, Fade Out. Would have a hard time if I should pick one of my favorites of them. I mean, Criminal is insanely good. Fatale, I really like certain aspects of it, as I do. Same with Fade Out. Kill or Be Killed is not my favorite pick, in contradiction to some others who said that Kill or Be Killed is actually their favorite. I mean, you can't really go wrong. It's always on some level. It's just, I do like this more than this, but nobody can really complain about their output. This is a neat thing here. Some magazine-sized criminal story, which has some, refers in some places in the story to a certain made-up Conan issue. Then the most recent run of Criminal, I have this one in issues, so no need for me to go the deluxe route in this case. Then we have Pulp and Scene of the Crime, which is actually an older story, and Velvet, of course, which was drawn by Mr. Epting. On the next shelf we have another book drawn by Daniel Ceceli and written by Kevin Baker, Luna Park. Cinder Ash, a classic action-packed comic about these two characters here. Drawn by José Luis Garcia Lopez, written by Gary Conway. Yeah, and then we have stuff of more Paul Pope comics. Escapo, about an escape artist, art-wise gorgeous looking, story-wise not as impressive as the art. Heavy Liquid, and actually Heavy Liquid is a good description in my mind for the special art style of Paul Pope. It's sort of heavy and it's fluid. 100%. Next book in line is a collection of stories that adapted the old Fritz Lang classic crime movie M, A City Looks for Its Murder. And what I do like about John J. Muth's very photoreferential art style is that he doesn't pretend to hide it, that he uses photoreferential stuff, and he works with it. So this is a nice collection of these stories that make up, of course, cover the whole movie. What's here? Oh, another Shadow story, reprint by Dynamite. Codename Knockout. Some Cheesecake Spy stuff. The Last Days of American Crime, Rick Remender. And a collection from Titan Comics. They do a lot of prose books in this fashion here, but amongst them there are some comic books as well, as P-Plant, which I remember to be one of the stronger ones of them. So, and here are my very beloved Stray Bullets volumes. Issue 1 is missing for some reasons right now, but here we have the original series and Sunshine and Roses. I did a video about the whole series, so you can check this out. Here we have another David Lapham stuff, Young Liars, fantastic, brilliant series, even though it's not Stray Bullets. Same goes for Murder Me Dead. And the Great Bug Elevator Juice Squeezers. I think this was meant to be a longer series, but seems never to come to fruition, or I'm just wrong. Silverfish, another collection of David Lapham. Sculpt, crime in the territories, in one territory of the Native Americans. Great series written by Jason Aaron, gorgeously drawn by R.M. Guerra. One of the best crime stories ever, in my opinion, and really deservedly delivered in these hardcover packages. Same goes for 100 Bullets, drawn by Eduardo Risso and written by Brian Azzarello. Great series. Can't praise it highly enough. And I really think that this format here, these deluxe editions, are really the way to go. Okay, I get it. Nowadays they seem to be out of print. So maybe you have to get them in these omnibuses, but these books, here, look at these arms. It's too much for me always to lift these huge blocks of paper. Queen and Country. So just to contradict myself, these books could have been printed bigger. Queen and Country is a spy story about a female character. Most of the time when you get a Greg Rucka story, you have a female character protagonist in the center of the story, as it is with Stumptown and as it is with Whiteout. Whiteout is about some crime in the polar region, and I figure somehow the Arctic regions are a good backdrop for a comic story, and in particular black and white comic story, because you start with a white paper, even though they did here really a lot with the white in the background, and it's really gripping. So Stumptown Volume 1 and Volume 2 I enjoyed a lot. The artist that came after Matthew Southworth didn't really do it for me, so I skipped the continuation of that series. One shelf below we have tons of Matt Kind, but other gorgeous, brilliant stuff like Deadly Class or Parker by Darwin Cook. My Matt Kind section here starts with Pistol Whip. I mean, Matt Kind has a very strange, very special, very particular angle, abstract angle on spy, espionage and crime stories. A bit similar to his buddy Jeff Lemire, of course, and this book here is gorgeous like all the others, like a super spy graphic novel here, Two Sisters, and Revolver, The Tooth, which is a crazy romp, pretending to be signed by the three creators, but it's obviously not. Sometimes I see some signature, because I'm one of these guys who actually don't care about signatures at all. Sometimes I rather think, hey, why you have scribbled on my book here, and then I see, oh, it's one of the artists or the writer, and increases the worth of your book. Yeah, maybe, but sometimes they just write over some page, which looked, to be honest with you, actually better before. But yeah, that's just me, I guess. This the Tooth here is a crazy, fun series. Some sort of horror superhero parody, but some crime in it as well. And since I put all these Matt Kindt books here side to side, there was not the possibility to put it on another shelf. Grass Kings was, of course, not drawn by Matt Kindt, just written by him, but Tyler Jenkins, and the colors of his wife or sister, Miss Jenkins. I mean, the coloring is very important to his art, very integral, because Tyler Jenkins' art is a bit sketchy, and the coloring does usually the rest, and it's a whole package and very fun, as you can see here. So Grass Kings about this outlaw community with a crime story, but the crime story here really is secondary. The world building in this book here is exceptional. Black Badge, imagine the YMCA, or one same entity, similar entity like the YMCA, is actually espionage outfit, and that's the basic premise of Black Badge. Again, with a couple of Tyler Jenkins and Hilary Jenkins on the art dues, chores. Looks good, but somehow this, of all the Matt Kindt books that I own, are the most skippable. One tome of this kind of story would have been enough, in my opinion. They stretched the meager premise a bit too long in a way, and somewhere it lost me a bit. It was still enjoyable, and I will keep the books, of course, but it's no comparison to this masterwork here. Mind Management, written and drawn by Matt Kindt, and gorgeously made books here, hardcovers, beautiful muddy paper, and from start to finish, just a joy to read. And it's this kind of intricate page turner that pulls you down into the weird mind and imagination of Matt Kindt. Follows a weird out stories with different twists and tropes and crazy characters, even though they're just drawn in a very cartoony, typical, abstract Matt Kindt fashion. You can distinguish all these characters from each other, and you can follow them, and it's an easy read, but the story in itself is complicated and twisting and turning, and that's the way it should be. Similar, even though not as that strong as Mind Management, still a fantastic story, is Department H, or Depth. A story about underwater sabotage, some sci-fi tinges to it. Well, I put it here. So as you can see, we're here in full espionage territory, and of course Matt Kindt has a big heart for this kind of stuff. As in this little book here, Super Spy, we follow the everyday life of spies, and it's almost a guidebook to espionage with little ideas and short stories that make up a whole espionage adventure world. But same with Red-Handed here. And I guess that finishes my Matt Kindt section. Here we have some floppies. This recent Spy Island stories. Thinking about it, crazy stuff like this could have been written by Matt Kindt in a way. Very own idiosyncratic take on crime stories is this one here, drawn by Michael Kennedy. Fantastic cover, one of my favorite comic covers ever. And as you can see, a lot of stuff, the stuff here is told through exposition boxes, which kept me initially a bit away from the book. But when I've read it, it's such an interesting take and way of storytelling that you should really try this here. And as it is with these videos going through my shelves, I discover some stuff that I haven't read yet. Like these 3 books, actually. A book written by Grant Morrison, drawn by John G. Muth, the mystery play. So I put this right into my to-be-read pile over there. That's just down there. And a series here written by Grant Morrison as well. Nikolai... Really? Really? No. It's written by one Robbie Morrison. Okay. And drawn by Charlie Adlard, Henry Flint, Simon Fraser and Chris Weston. Yeah, totally I can see why I got this back in the day. As I remember, for a bargain price, but has its sometimes with these bargain books you don't cherish them as much as the others, even if they're just as good as the others. So I really forgot about these 2 books, which is a bit of a shame. But these have to be read later. Some book that art-wise reminded me a bit of Love and Rockets, so that's because why I got this book here by David Hahn, Private Beach. But to be honest, neither the story nor the art could really deliver. It's alright in a way, yeah. But absolutely no comparison to Deadly Class. 1 and 2, huge volumes, crazy art, crazy colors, fantastic stuff all over. I did a video about it, like I did about Lady Killer from Joel Jones. There was a preceding book, You Have Killed Me, also written initially by Jamie S. Rich. I mean, Lady Killer was created by Jamie S. Rich. Afterwards, Joel Jones did the writing as well. Here it's Joel Jones in her not as refined early style. Bit cartoony, but very serviceable art. And a good story, really. One comic creator that I love immensely, and I think it's a pity that he doesn't do more comics, is Jonathan Case. The New Deal is a story that takes us back in into the 30s, and it's reflected in his fantastic art style, a story that takes place in a hotel in New York City, in Manhattan. So, wonderful story, really. An old collection of David Mazzucchelli short stories called Discovering America. Very beat up copy, but I mean, David Mazzucchelli hadn't produced a ton of comic material, aside of course, everyone's favorite, the One. And this is actually a bunch of real cool material here. More classic stuff by Stan Drake and Leonard Starr, Kelly Green, classic comic material. A bunch of European album-sized translations. Then we have The Red One by Xavier Dorisson and Terry Dodson. this should be actually be continued. I had high hopes for. It's the typical blend of sexy and gripping of Terry Dodson. And I guess I don't have to tell you more about this slipcase here, the Martini edition of Darwin Cook's Parker. We will have the second edition pretty soon, or the second volume to that gorgeous tome, and I will do a panellogy about this as well. In the meantime, you can watch my old video about Darwin Cook, in which I've talked, of course, about this gorgeous, maybe one of the most beautiful comic books ever made in that video. So actually, what's left in this lowest shelf here is just a bunch of crime comics. The rest are comics with some history and background, and my to-read pile with some of the comics that I read once in a while and put them back again, and so on. Like Sleepy Reader once said, like a butterfly flying from one flower to the other, which is, in my opinion, a very fitting metaphor for my reading habits as well. The Girl Who Played with Fire, Stieg Larsson, well drawn, okay, classic crime comic. If you're more for the traditional adventure action stuff, you will be rewarded with this one here. Michael show about a shoplifter, hence the title, and that's her. A little story drawn or colored in this unusual black and pink style, which takes a while to get used to, but once you're settled in, it's a nice little psychological story. Bandette Volume 1 I liked enough to get my cartoony vibes with this kind of art and story here, but it was not enough to keep me hunting down more of these. And to be honest with you, this I got for a bargain price. It was sort of the reason to get this. A bunch of Philip Marlowe adaptations drawn by Michael Lark. This one is called The Little Sister. It's in German translation. One of my favorite stories ever hiding just here is The Humans, and you can argue if this is just a crime book or whatever you want to call this story about these monkey gangs of Hell's Angels in monkey version of the Hell's Angels beating the shit out of each other. A little almost forgotten piece of crime drawn by Sam Keith about Eleanor and the egret, and she really has an egret, and this is a really hilarious, silly little story, but nothing more actually. And if it wouldn't be for the art of Sam Keith, this book would be totally uninteresting, but yeah, Sam Keith is great. A little book of comic exploitation of exploitation movies and stuff. Sex Castle by Carl Starks. Was deservedly highly praised when it came out. Fun read. Some stuff here by Shaky Kane. The Bulletproof Coffin. Trade collection. 2 magazines or comic books. Guess there were one-shots here. The 1000 Yard Stare, and That's Because You're a Robot. Real Crime, The Green River Killer. I did a video about this book here and about My Friend Dama. I guess I threw from hell in it, and yeah, talked about these kind of real crime comics a bit. Bang Tango, and yeah, this is sort of the follow-up, or yeah, maybe story-wise a bit of a swipe of Black Kiss by Howard Chaykin. And Torso by Brian Michael Bendis, which is celebrated by a lot of people. I really can't get into this book just because of the art by Brian Michael Bendis, and I think he's really not the greatest artist in the world. And it's understandable that he chooses the writing over the cartooning. So, last but not least, in terms of crime books, we have here, I pull them out of the box here. What do we have? A bit more from Shaky Kane, The Monster Truck. It's more an art book, and I don't know if you should hunt this down, because it's just this kind of stuff here. A goofy story told just on the half of the pages, while the other half stays blank. And you can really read this in a one toilet sitting, and it's not so much a crime book. This is more about everyday crime, about our meat eating habits, the beef, which came out a while ago from Image, and I did this handmade slipcase. It's far too flimsy, and I'm not really satisfied with this kind of stuff, but it's better than to put the comic books just as they are into the shelf. So this was a sort of fun comic book, but even though I can see his political views and points that he's making, somehow I don't like to be preached at, if you know what I mean. Here we have Jack Cross, series in comic book format, written by Warren Ellis, drawn by one Gary Erskine, servable art, as we have in many crime stories. And in crime stories, I think it's not bad to have a usual classic comic art that just delivers the story, because the story should be the star, at least in some comic stories. In other, it's really the other way around, like in Benjamin Mara's books. This is Night Business. I know there's a collected edition or a thick tome out with the whole story, and here I don't have the ending of this story here, but I don't care. I like these little books here. Here we have American Blood, a thicker collection of stories put out by Fantagraphics that were published before at some other places. Goofy, weird out, crime, sci-fi, swords wielding, crazy out comic stuff like only Benjamin Mara does, in this very pulpy, deceivingly simple, almost amateurish looking style. You like it when you like it, you don't like it when you don't like it. And be warned, if you take this book here, the story within is even creepier and crazier, like this one. Yeah, it's just a slaughter fest in comic form. Last but not least, here I have a little section with stories, comics, that are not as much crime stories, even though there are some crimes happening, of course, but with a certain historic background, like Sam Glansman's Attu, the collected volumes of this Stone Age guy here, or The Goddamned, Before the Blood, which takes place in biblical times, or the fantastic series Northlanders, written by Brian Wood, about the Vikings and stuff. Bravo for Adventure from Alex Toth. Or Mesolith again, some Stone Age adventures. I think it's pretty interesting that it's just this small part of my collection that consists out of English or American comics that have a certain particular historic background. I mean, of course, you can pull out some other books that have a certain historic background as well. But it's not as big or important as it is in European comics, as I will put out in a later video. In European comics, we have lots of comics that are referring much more to the historic background and are settled within a certain time period than it is usually the case with American or English comics. So, and as I said it before, these comics over there are just comics that I have to read soon or later, however. Thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.